This is the only opinion that matters. I'm PG, I'm chillin', and can't we all just get along? And this is gonna be my analysis, thoughts, and review of the whole Drake versus Kendrick, the Big Rap Beef 2024. Where were you when Like That dropped? I do want to say that you could make the argument that this is the biggest rap beef in hip hop history, considering where hip hop is as a genre today, how it's probably the most popular genre in music today, and we have the two biggest artists in hip hop right now duking it out back and forth. Although what does ruin it is that all these rappers on the side kind of giving their input and diss responses and all that. Like obviously we have Future and Metro Boomin, who did put out Like That with Kendrick Lamar, but also they're stepping in with their beefs, pulling in A$AP Rocky. Obviously we had J. Cole give a diss response to Kendrick, and he apologized like he was apologizing for bad sex or something like that. Not that I know much about that because
I don't sex a lot.
And then you had involvement from Rick Ross and yes, even Kanye. So the beef is a little bit convoluted. So in fairness to Drake, when he put out the song Pushups as a diss response to not only Kendrick Lamar, but to Future, Metro Boomin, Rick Ross, and maybe a couple others, he is responding to more than one person. It's not just 1v1 in that case. In fact, my favorite diss or bar in that song Pushups is him just telling Metro Boomin to shut up and make some drums. I just found it very funny and just very disrespectful and dismissive. Like, dude, you're a producer. Get out of this. What are you doing here? Pushups also has a solid beat and some solid jabs at Kendrick Lamar, mostly about how he splits the profits, going 50-50, better drop and give me 50, and how he pretty much is a puppet to Top Dog, how he's dropping verses, how he has to drop verses for Taylor Swift for the Swifties, or for Maroon 5 is another example. Really just undermining and shorthanding, pun intended, Kendrick Lamar and his career. And obviously the jab about him being a short king, size 7.5 men's, how can he be a big stepper, which is also a reference to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers album, so that was kind of a nice touch. So it was a fair response to Kendrick's verse on Like That, as well as a response to a bunch of other people. Now this past Tuesday, and I don't know when I'm going to drop this video, but let's just say this past Tuesday, Kendrick Lamar drops his response to Pushups, which is Euphoria, this 6-minute long song. Again, it has 3 beat switches, which could also be a reference to him saying you're going to need 3 switches to get them. So this could be that. And you can just tell that being 6 minutes long and having this song have a slow build up, and then the diss is just getting more increasingly angry and scathing. You can tell that Kendrick put a lot of time into this. So yeah, it took a little over 2 weeks to respond to Pushups and the Pushups leak. But at the end of the day, no one's going to care about how much time was spent in between and if that gives him an L or not, as long as he delivers, and quite frankly, we're all prisoners of the moment. Do I believe that if he dropped the song sooner, maybe like a week after Pushups, would the impact be better? Probably. It probably would be more well received. But nonetheless, Euphoria is a good diss track. The key moment in that smooth intro to Euphoria is where he says that I make music that electrifies him, you make music that pacifies him. And then you'll hear Kendrick later on taking similar angles like Pusha T and others, like Rick Ross on his recent diss track, basically saying that he's not black enough and how many black features does he need to feel like he's black, and how he also feels cringy, or it feels cringy when Drake says the N-word. Nigerian, right? But I'll defer to other people about that. And just like Pusha T, he also references him and references how, he wasn't exactly there for his son Adonis. And Kendrick just straight up saying, I don't like you. I don't like the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you dress. Clearly, Kendrick does not like Drake. He also mentions later on that Drake reached out for him for a feature, perhaps on First Person Shooter. So it's pretty clear that Kendrick's response is, overall saying he does not like Drake and what he represents. And Kendrick feels that what he's saying in the song is what the culture represents. So people want to say that it's round 1 Pushups versus Euphoria, but really it's Kendrick starting the bait or starting the beef with the verse on Like That. Then Drake gives us Pushups, response to everybody, including Kendrick. And now Kendrick pushing it further with his response. Clearly Kendrick's response is more personal, more scathing, but he did spend a lot of time on it. 6 minutes about it. I mean, come to think of it, a rap beef, when you really simplify it, is 2 grown-ass people, in this case 2 grown-ass men, writing poetry, making poetry about one another, which is a little sus in its own right. So for Kendrick to spend all that time and energy writing a fairly creative diss track, which has a story arc to it, you kind of slowly build up the anger and the diss itself. Clearly, Kendrick spent a lot of time on this, as he does with all his work. Whereas Drake is fighting off multiple people and, being on tour, he's kind of just brushing off everybody. But Kendrick in particular is what this beef is all about. Although Kendrick is taking it personal on a personal level, I do feel that this beef still isn't really going in a violent direction, and it's just more of who is the bigger rapper and who is, I guess, more loved as well in the rap game and the rap industry. And in hip-hop culture, of course. Now, who do I think is winning? If you just extract the bars that diss one another, you extract what Drake says about Kendrick, you extract what Kendrick says about Drake. If you break it down in that way, Kendrick is definitely winning because he's clearly saying more scathing and more disrespectful comments towards Drake. But like I said, in fairness, Drake is doing this 20v1 thing, which Kendrick, he fights back saying, oh, it's also a 1v20 for me because I got to battle against your ghostwriters, so to speak. I also am giving the nod to Kendrick because that AI diss song that Drake put out, I believe it was called the Tailor-Made Freestyle, as creative and as meta as a move as that was to have like AI Tupac and AI Snoop Dogg kind of, antagonized as some sort of, symbolism that, oh, Kendrick, you got to fight it. You got to do it for us. It does bite Drake in the ass because literally Tupac's estate had to make a statement and Drake had to pull or remove that song from streaming or wherever it may have been. Which in a way is a metaphor because the whole thing about, this whole thing you can attack Drake at is that he's not real hip hop. An argument for that would be that, look, even Tupac's literal family and estate is saying, no, we don't like this. But if you just extract the two pieces of art and what the two artists are slinging back at one another, right now I give the edge to Kendrick Lamar. But we'll see what Drake has in store. Perhaps he pulls out a Toronto Ether out of nowhere, maybe like a 4 a.m. in Compton or something like that. But, I'll put nothing past Drake. There's clearly a spot for both of these artists in hip-hop today. But these are my thoughts on the whole rap beef as it stands right now. Who knows what's going to happen by the time I drop this or release this video. So what are your thoughts on my thoughts? What are your thoughts on the rap beef as a whole? Who do you think is winning and what do you think will happen? Again, these are my thoughts. Stay blessed.